Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside the Pigskin. My name is Scott Morgan, Roth the Motor City Madmouth, and I have myself a fine crew tonight. And we welcome the new kid on the block, Jake Malik of Sideline Sports. And I will tell you one thing about Jake. He falls in that long line of impressive, aspiring broadcasters that include John Shear, Eric Wilson. And I'm looking forward to getting JB Ellis on before long. If everything I hear about JB Ellis is true, that he's a very animated, energetic guy, I'll tell you what, I'm looking forward to matching wits ends with him. But I'm going to say one thing about these folks at Sideline Sports. They do a really good job with a lot of their live broadcasts, and we certainly love bringing on that talent when we get a chance. So I had an opportunity to appear with Jake before, and of course we crossed paths during the Super Bowl out in LA on a lot of those media availabilities, and now we don't have to cross paths anymore there because we are here. With that said, my crew tonight is Steve Balestrieri. Welcome back, Steve.
Great to be here and look forward to talking with everyone tonight. Can never get enough football talk in my life.
And my prize star running back, Mel Farr Jr. Welcome back, Mel.
Hey, great to be back, guys. Look forward to it.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun, obviously. Let everybody know who's listening for the first time, Mel, who you played for in the
NFL. Played for the Rams a long time ago.
Okay, very good. And well, Jake, here you are. This is
happy to be here.
Why don't you give everybody a little bit of overview about you, Jake, first before we go in to take care of business.
Yeah, I'm still in school, but I'm trying to learn the ropes. I'm with Sideline Sports. I help create everything there. I've been doing that year and a half now. We covered last year's Super Bowl, this year's Super Bowl, Hall of Fame inductions. We cover a lot of sports. I pride myself on being the hockey guy. That's why I'm wearing my Seattle Kraken shirt. My Seattle Kraken hat. Steve was commenting about this before. He loved it. So I think I got a little bit of a fellow hockey guy there, just a little bit. But for the show, I cover. I like to cover the NHL for us, but I love everything. And Scott, when you said you wanted to do football, man, was I excited because I'm like Steve. I can't get enough football talk. I love it.
You'll get plenty of it tonight. I happen to be wearing a Super Bowl cap that I got a few years ago when the game was here in Miami. So
I hate to tell you, I did not like that Super Bowl as a Giants fan. If I remember correctly, that was when the Eagles won, and I was not very happy.
Well, things happen. You only have one team that wins and one that loses. So what can I tell you? So with that said, we'll get to the top of this whole thing. Obviously, when the Super Bowl concludes, okay, then the last coaching vacancy was filled today, by the way, when Kevin McConnell became the new Vikings head coach. And of course, with that, also Zach Taylor was rewarded for his good season. He's been extended by the Cincinnati Bengals through 2026. So with that said, Jake, you obviously were enthusiastic about coming on this show today. So I'm going to ask you to educate us a little bit about what you talked about on your shows, and did this game go as you expected it to on your platform?
Yeah. I think the first and most important thing was it was a very good game. We were talking about last night. We were really excited for guys like Matt Stafford, Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp, who completed one of the greatest seasons a wide receiver's probably ever had. Getting the Triple Crown, Offensive Player of the Year, Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl MVP. He did it all. We were really happy for those guys. Those guys, obviously, they really deserve it. They earned it. Sean McVay, speaking to those guys throughout the week, it was really exciting for them. The game itself was great. We all agreed that we really enjoyed the game itself. It was pretty close to what we expected, a close game, and we didn't think it was going to get too far out of hand. There was an expectation. Look, these are both good teams. There's a reason they're in the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow, despite being sacked quite a few times, we knew he was going to keep it relatively afloat. We knew he was going to keep his team in it, and they did. But as we predicted, the Rams won. The one thing that we all agreed on, and I'm sure you guys will agree with me on this, we were kind of pissed about the officiating. Look, I'll make a quick thing, and then we can go into it more later. But you got to be consistent with your officiating. Either call all the ticky-tacky stuff throughout the game or don't, but don't just start calling it at the end of the game when it seems to be convenient. I don't want to say too much. I know that's going to be a deeper topic for conversation, but that was my one big takeaway that I was not happy about was the officiating towards the end. Kind of rubbed me the wrong way, I think is a good way to put it.
All right, Steve, give me your observations about what you saw on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree with that. I didn't have a dog in the hunt. I'm not a fan of either team, so I just wanted to watch a really good Super Bowl. And I thought we were getting that. And then at the end, I just thought the officials got too involved at the wrong time for the wrong reasons. And it takes away a really good football game, I thought, because I was the same way. I was a little ticked off at the end of the game. I was like, the officials let them play all game long, and then to call that penalty down there. I mean, was it a penalty? I guess you could say it was, but they were letting other things go all game long. And that to me was really ticky-tack, but it is what it is. The one thing that I kept thinking to myself, I think Zach Taylor's a really good coach, but the Bengals had 4 times they were either 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1. And not one of those plays, Joe Mixon was on the field. And, you have a bruising running back like him, who's really good. And, I'm thinking to myself, I think Zach Taylor was outsmarting himself. Oh, 4th and 1, they're thinking we're going to run and we're going to try to fool them with the pass. Well, with that pass rush, they weren't very successful with it. And I thought that was a big part of the game. You go back to that first 4th and 1 at midfield in the first quarter. They tried to throw the ball, didn't work. And I was just like, why don't they give it to Joe Mixon? I mean, you have 4th and 1. It led to the Rams' first touchdown. But, going back to what Jake was saying about Cooper Kupp, he took over that game in the last, 5-6 minutes, whatever it was. That was his time. And he was incredible. And I don't think anyone had any doubt that he was going to score a touchdown at that point. So I thought it was a good game. I don't think it was a great game, but it was a good game. It was a good Super Bowl. And I thought both teams played well.
It's amazing how you talk about Joe Mixon. It reminds me a while back when Marshawn Lynch should have been in the game, in the Seattle game, and you didn't have him in there at crunch time. And now you're referencing Joe Mixon here at crunch time. What can I tell you? When you have a great running back, don't you think you want to put the ball in his hands at key times?
4th and 1. I mean, yeah.
Right. Short yardage.
Yeah, I mean, if it's 4th and 3, 4th and 4, I mean, absolutely, you got to throw the football. When you have a back like that, especially the way that defense was coming up the field and getting after it, a quick hitter right up the middle with a big physical running back like him. I just thought it was a recipe for losing.
Yeah, it was Marshawn Lynch all over again. All right, Mel, you're patiently waiting. What are your thoughts about Sunday's football game?
Best part about the game was a halftime show. Now, the game before and after the show, I think the Rams dodged a bullet. Matthew Stafford was Matthew Stafford, made a couple, you can say the one interception. You can, the ball was a tough ball to catch that was deflected and intercepted. But then the one pass that he threw in the end zone, that was an interception. I don't know what he was thinking about on that particular play. The Rams had a difficult time. They had great field position and pretty much throughout the game, but had a very difficult time moving the ball. The defense kept them in that game until the offense decided to do something and go ahead and, score some points there on that last drive. And like you guys alluded to, I mean, that was a very ticky-tack holding call on Cooper Kupp that was called on Cincinnati on that linebacker down there who's doing everything. He's doing everything he possibly could to win the game. But I think the Rams dodged a bullet. But I think because they had been there before, Aaron Donald had been there before, he willed that team to win. I really thought that Aaron Donald, even though he may not have shown up a whole lot on the stat sheet, but you had to account for him. And if you didn't account for him, he was going to wreck the game plan. And they accounted for him by, double teaming him, triple teaming him most of the time. The Rams didn't bring, they didn't blitz that often, so he didn't get one-on-one. And when he did get one-on-one on that last play, you see what happens. I mean, he gets back there in the backfield so quick, man. It'll have your head spinning. But I thought the Rams would win. I'd never, Cincinnati's a good football team. Joe Burrow, a very gutsy quarterback, very talented quarterback. They got a talented group of receivers there. To say that they'll be back is difficult because a lot of things have to go right to get back. You got to stay healthy, number one. And I'm certain that, Pittsburgh and Baltimore, they're going to have a lot to say about whether or not Cincinnati is able to get back there, next year or anytime soon. But the halftime show was the best part about it. Enjoyed the halftime show.
All right. Well, the thing that stood out to
a
me.
funny thing you talked about, Mel, about dodging a bullet. Sorry to interrupt. I didn't
That's
mean
all
to
right.
interrupt you there. I watched the all 22 after the game, and on that final play where Aaron Donald sacked him, Jalen Ramsey fell down.
He fell down. He was on the ground.
I saw that.
He
Yeah.
was on the ground, and
Right.
Jamar Chase would have been wide open for a touchdown. I mean, there wasn't anyone within.
Imagine if Joe Burrow just gets one more second, right? You just one
Yeah.
more second. We're talking about a whole different game. We're not talking about Matt Stafford and Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp getting their rings. We're talking about Joe
Jalen
Burrow
Ramsey
getting that
falling
ring,
down.
right? And we're talking about Jalen Ramsey messing it. Oh, he has got to be I mean, I got to tell you, he should be. If he's not, he should be. I mean,
He should be giving
Thanking-
that paycheck for the
Exactly.
Super Bowl to Aaron
I
Donald.
mean, he should say, Aaron Donald, take my ring because you deserve this more than I do. I mean, look, Jalen Ramsey's a great player. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to badmouth him, but man, he got he got saved. Aaron Donald saved him. And I just wanted to real quick, both you and Mel kind of commented on it. Mel was talking about the fact they'd been there already. I think that's one of those things that was why they won. And Steve, you were talking about how you think Zach Taylor outcoached himself. I think that's why Sean McVay was the better coach and why they won, because he'd been there, like Mel said, and was not making the mistakes of outcoaching himself by accident, by overthinking. He was thinking, no, I know this. I listened to his press conferences. I was sitting in them all week. I heard what he had to say. He knew what where things went wrong in his last appearance. And he said, okay, let's dumb it down. Let's not overthink this. Let's go out there, play our brand of football, do our thing. And they won. And I think that is a big reason. I mean, look,
I think
Zach Taylor's great.
I think a turning point in the game was when Odell got hurt. That really hurt the Rams offense.
Yeah.
Their offense really became stagnant when Odell got hurt. I mean, I didn't know if they were going to be able to pull it out because they just didn't. I don't know if it just lack of weapons or just. Then everybody can just key on Cooper Kupp. Then now you can double, triple team him. Where before you had to kind of play it honest a little bit because you got Odell out there. I mean, you want Odell to be by himself, singled up with either a slot corner who is going to be your third best corner, or either the other corner. You want Odell one-on-one with that person. So that really hurt. I think if Odell had played, it had been able to stay healthy throughout the course of the game, I think the score would have been much, much different. But the fact that he went down, that was huge.
Yeah, that's
go ahead.
That's a good point, and I'm glad you brought that up, Mel. I was going to bring it up later, but we might as well address it right now. Yeah, with Odell Beckham ended up having 2 catches for 52 yards and a touchdown, and I thought the Rams could have rolled to a very convincing win over Cincinnati the way that game was going. But all of a sudden, once again, the injury bug had hurt the Rams. We saw Robert Woods went down earlier, and throughout the course of the year, the Rams kept overcoming injuries. How many times, Jake, did you hear during the course of our media availabilities that Stafford was talking about all the guys that went down that didn't get to see this game? And once again, in the biggest game of the year, an injury once again took place to a key player. I mean, think about it. You're right, Mel. Okay, Odell Beckham Jr. goes down, and you know what? Now you're reduced to Cooper Kupp, because if I had to sit here and wonder what the all-name team was in terms of who they had left, I wouldn't be able to come up with an answer. I really don't care, because Odell Beckham Jr. I thought was key to complement Cooper Kupp, and therefore you have a closer game versus what could have been. So
The
go
only
ahead.
other guy would have been Van Jefferson. And don't get me wrong, I think he's a talented player too, but he's not a number 2 in this situation. Right. I mean, when you're used to having Robert Woods or at this point OBJ, that was big shoes to fill. And then I don't even know who their third guy was. I know he wore number, I think 18. Right. But he had just a couple drops. I remember. I hate to sound like that, but he wasn't. He didn't do anything that made me like, oh yeah, I remember who his name was. I remember he had a hard to pronounce last name, and I believe he wore number 18, and that was about the extent of what I remember about him. So you're right. I mean, I got to tell you, I think about it too. Not only do I think they would have gone for a convincing win, I think OBJ, the way he was playing, the way things were going, it would have been down to probably him or Matt Stafford, and possibly just him for the Super Bowl MVP, because Cooper Kupp is great. Don't get me wrong, but Cooper Kupp probably doesn't get that touchdown in crunch time, right? It doesn't come down to that. And OBJ probably continues to just own the game because he already had 50 plus yards and a touchdown, and it was very early. I mean, even if he goes at half that pace, he would have broken probably 120, 130 yards. He probably had another touchdown. He would have probably been Super Bowl MVP just alone, based on what we saw. So you're right. It changed the complexion of the game. And I'm almost glad that it happened. Not that he got hurt, but the game got changed, because I think it made it a closer, more exciting Super Bowl, because it could have become very boring very fast if it was just, Rams just keep scoring and just blow them out completely.
All right, let me go over some stats, because I really like to incorporate stats in these shows. Matthew Stafford throws for 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 26 of 40 for 283 yards. We know he's used to 300-yard gains when he has a full deck. He didn't. And then we'll talk about Cooper Kupp for a moment. All right. And he goes out there and catches 8 for 92 yards and 2 touchdowns. And we know where all 3 of the touchdowns were to the wide receivers. Now, I'm going to take this to another level before I get to Joe Burrow, because I know I want to talk about that. And let me tell you, the media availabilities that I was able to get questions in, and I want to get those out right away, because you'll understand why I'm doing it. I had an opportunity to talk to Brandon Powell, obviously the kid from Deerfield Beach, Eric Gaber, who I was extremely impressed with, the coach for the wide receiver coach of the Rams, Javon Williams, I believe the offensive line, on the offensive line for the Bengals, Ashawn Robinson, and of course, Al Golden. And incidentally, folks, if you haven't heard, Al Golden went from linebackers coach to defensive coordinator to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, who was just hired there. So those are the guys. Now, getting back to my point, there's no question that Cooper Kupp, to me, he's certainly a viable MVP candidate. So with everything I've said, I want to ask each and every one of you guys. I'm going to start with you first, Steve, okay? Was Cooper Kupp the right choice for MVP, Steve?
Absolutely. We saw him on that final drive. He was making the plays. I'll tell you what, the biggest play made, I thought, wasn't the touchdown. It was the 4th and 1 7-yard run he made. I thought right there, if Cincinnati stops him right there, I think they win the football game. I know the Rams still had 3 timeouts, but I think if they stop him there, that's the football game. And I thought that was huge. And it was just, I think it was the right call, making Cooper Kupp the MVP, because it was all him on that final drive. I mean, he was the guy catching the passes. He made the big run. Yeah, I think they absolutely made the right call there.
All right, Jake, what do you think? Who should have been the MVP of this game?
I'd have to agree with that. You want to talk about stats? I'm with you on that. I was looking at the stats. Look, the defense itself had a bunch of sacks, but the other 2 guys that would have stuck out as potential MVPs maybe are Aaron Donald or Von Miller, just because of the name value, and obviously they're great players, but they each, and I say they only had 2 sacks, but the truth of the matter is it wasn't game changing where they had like 5 sacks and just absolutely dominated every second of the game. I would have to agree with what Steve was saying, which is the fact that Cooper Kupp did do that. And that's kind of what, for me at least, is why the criteria really why you earn a Super Bowl MVP. You took the game over, right? You took the game in your hands and you said, I'm not letting us lose. And that's what Cooper Kupp did. You look at MVPs of, basically any Super Bowl, the guy that wins is the guy that really put the team on his back and said, no, I got this. I'm going to make sure we're going to, we're not losing, right? Why did Von Miller win his original Super Bowl MVP? He put the team on his back. His play, that forced fumble and recovery, that whole play, that is what helps win a Super Bowl. That's what Cooper Kupp did. And that's why I would agree with Steve. Cooper Kupp went out there. He did what he always does. He was focused. He was determined. And, if it's not for him, I don't think the Rams are even close to winning that game, let alone ended up winning the game on that final drive.
All right, Mel, you're next.
Yeah, I already said. I believe Aaron Donald should have won it. To be honest with you, again, everything doesn't show up in the box score. Everything that he did and his contributions to that game don't show up in the box score all the time, because he's occupying two people. So that means somebody else has to get home because he can't get there. It's just very difficult for him to get home. But when they needed a play, who made the play? Their superstar defensive tackle made a play that sealed it. That sealed the Super Bowl for him. And as Jake was saying, when they went for it on that fourth down and they ran that reverse, I really thought that was a mistake, to be honest with you, to go for it where they were on the field. I think they were on the -30 at that particular time. That's tough. If you don't make it, and the way Cincinnati was moving the ball, I mean, they could move the ball in between the 20s. They just had a hard time getting it in the end zone. That's the one thing that the defense did a very good job of, is limiting Cincinnati to few touchdowns where they were kicking field goals as opposed to getting touchdowns. So that's why I say the defense kept them in the game until they were able to get things going on that last drive, because that's really all the Rams did. Is that last drive is all, pretty much was all their offense. And again, I think that goes back to the experience, Sean McVay and his experience, his will to win, Matthew Stafford just being unflappable. We know that Jared Goff wouldn't be able to make the throws that Matthew Stafford made. That one throw that Matthew Stafford made over the middle, that was a critical conversion. I think it was the Cooper Kupp that he threw the ball across the middle. With the one, I think it was the no look pass that he threw.
Right.
And he looked off the tight end and threw it over. Jared Goff doesn't make that play. And that's why they got Matt Stafford to make those kind of plays at that time in the game. But still, I believe Aaron Donald should have won it.
Yeah, and you know what I'll do? As much as my heart would tell me that I would love to see Matthew Stafford win the MVP, I don't believe that in this case he would have been the right call. I'm kind of leaning in your direction, though, Mel, because when you have a guy who's a stopper like you saw with Aaron Donald, I mean, here's a guy that has done everything for that organization. How do you go against the top clutch defensive play on 4th and short, especially when the Bengals could not convert at all? It's pretty hard to go against that key defensive player too. You want to
think about the one touchdown they did get, the 75-yarder, that was PI.
Right. Well, I mean, we can get into a lot of interesting plays about Jalen Ramsey being manhandled with that face mask that wasn't to be. Okay. But, officials are human. They make mistakes. But I would venture more toward Aaron Donald. Now, I will point out, though, it's not uncommon for wide receivers to walk away with the hardware. Let me give you a couple of great examples of them. Number one, I was at Super Bowl 43 when the Steelers defeated the Cardinals. Ever heard of Santonio Holmes? I'll tell you what, I couldn't believe that when I went to the Monday press conference, was that he was the guy that was going to go out there and win the MVP. But lo and behold, when Roethlisberger hit Santonio Holmes, it was another story. And let's talk about a history here with wide receivers walking away with the hardware. All right, Jake, before you were born, okay, it's time to bring out the old age card here. Joe Montana defeated the Bengals in Super Bowl 23. Everybody knows about the 92-yard drive and a 20-16 win, January 22nd, 1989. You know who the MVP was in that one?
Jerry Rice.
Well, I asked him, not you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I couldn't figure that out, though. Considering Jerry's one of the greatest to ever touch a football, I could have made a wild guess. Just a wild guess.
I mean, geez, oh, Pete, that's all right, Mel. You get a mulligan. I'm not like that guy, Sneaky Hembo, on Get Up in the morning. Rocky, go out there and throw a little sneaky answer and catches everybody off guard. All right, Get Up. You owe me a little bit of money for giving you a plug on this show. But yeah, Jerry Rice was there. The game was played at Joe Robbie Stadium. So, you had a little bit of, Cooper Kupp winning the MVP against the Bengals, okay, with Joe Montana throwing the ball to Rice, and of course Stafford firing it to Kupp. But, but when you look at the Bengals in general, they are now 0-3 in Super Bowls, 2 against the 49ers, 1 against the Rams, and the Rams have won a Super Bowl in 2 separate cities. Now, one of the things I don't want to overlook here in this show is Joe Burrow being sacked 7 times. Everybody knows, we've heard it all week, you need to get an offensive line. And they definitely need it. A guy can't survive with 60, 70 sacks all year the way he ended up getting if you combine the postseason numbers with the regular season numbers. Now, I don't fault the Bengals for drafting Jamar Chase over Penei Sewell because we all saw how that worked out. And I think the Lions have a good blocker there for Jared Goff or whoever. But that was one of the things I mentioned to Javon. Was it Javon Williams, right, Jake, about how they were going to protect Burrow. And obviously they didn't do a good enough job. And the Rams, you know, when you think of Ashawn Robinson, Aaron Donald, and drawing a blank, we got Ashawn Robinson.
Floyd?
Yeah, him. And that massive defensive line that you have, and Von Miller. Okay, there's no recipe to protect Joe Burrow. You can say Joe Cool, okay, and it was unfortunate. I'm glad that neither quarterback got hurt because for a moment it looked like they were. What was it? Burrow played a sprained MCL, and Stafford took a hit. This was a physical pounding football game. So when you put it all into perspective, Jake, go ahead and do it. You know, I've given you a lot to bite on here between the wide receivers, and Joe Burrow can sue for lack of support.
Yeah, I mean, look, they had sack problems long before this game, right? You talk about they had sack problems all season. It was not easy for Joe Burrow all season. I mean, they had a playoff record. What was it? 7, 8, 9 sacks against the Titans.
9 sacks.
9. It was 9. Okay. I know it was 7 in the Super Bowl. I couldn't remember if it was 7 and 7 or it was. Yeah. So there you go. So you got, I mean, in 2 games alone, he had 16 sacks. I mean, that's not good. And look, I get the Jamar Chase pick. I guarantee you, I know why they picked it. A little birdie might be able to tell me that Joe may have put in a word and said, "Yeah, get this guy Jamar. He's pretty good. We'll do okay together, right?" And that's okay. And I'm all okay with it. But if they don't go fix the line, it doesn't matter because Joe's not going to play much if he can't, stay healthy. And he's not going to stay healthy if they don't fix the line. And you said it. And I talked to the guys throughout the week. I talked to Donald. I talked to Miller. I talked to Floyd. Right? They all had the same common thing to say: just got to get pressure on the quarterback. And I knew that was going to happen. And I knew that was the case. If you got pressure on Joe Burrow, I think he's great. And I knew they'd stay in the game because he makes plays. You know, he can escape the pocket. He'll make the plays. He's a tough guy. But at the end of the day, I don't know how you're supposed to stop Aaron Donald, Von Miller, and Leonard Floyd. Stopping 2 out of the 3 was difficult as it is. And then, trying to stop a third. When they added Von Miller, I remember saying, I don't know how people are going to stop them. I don't know, because Miller and Floyd were already, actually not Miller and Floyd, Donald and Floyd were already having a great season together, right? It was, you double team 1, okay, good luck with the other one. Now you got 3. I mean, it's got to be some of the scariest defensive line play for an offensive lineman to see, because it's like, well, which one do I go defend? Okay, I double teamed this guy. Well, what about these other 2? What do we do now? I saw that coming. That's why I said the Rams would win. Look, Matt Stafford did what Matt Stafford does, and Mel kind of talked about that before. Matt Stafford played like Matt Stafford. You're right. He didn't do enough to lose, but he sure as heck didn't do everything alone to win. That offensive line for the Bengals is, they played well the week before, but against probably the scariest 3 guys to have together, I didn't think they were ever going to have a chance. And the fact that the game was as close as it was, I'm a little surprised, I think, just because I figured Joe Burrow was going to be on the ground even more than he already was.
Well, Ashawn Robinson, don't discount this guy.
No,
here.
Absolutely not.
I'm going to tell you something. Ashawn Robinson, I talked to him last week as well. Here's a guy that dealt with injuries when he was with the Lions, but he's come around and he's had an opportunity to learn from Aaron Donald and Von Miller. Anytime you got those guys and they're showing you the ropes and teaching you how to be a professional like he was, that's a guy who I thought could have been the X factor in this football game. When you have all those run stoppers and all those beasts over on that line. Mel, can you imagine if you were a running back and you had those guys going after you? I mean, put yourself in the running back position against these guys. How would you have dealt with what the Rams had to throw at them?
Well, I'm looking at the stats and you're talking about Joe Burrow. Yeah, I mean, that's not sustainable. I mean, he'll be like Andrew Luck. You know,
Right.
you just get beat up, and after a while, you just get a little gun shy back there. I mean, even people say the rush doesn't affect you, but if you flick your hand in somebody's eye like that, you're going to blink, right? So if somebody's always in his face, he's going to blink a little bit. He's going to flinch. So that's just not sustainable. But pass blocking, pass protection there's many facets to it. Now, it could be holding onto the ball too long. So when you're trying to throw the ball down the field, downfield quite a bit, then the quarterback has to hold onto the ball a little bit longer. That obviously increases his chances of getting hurt. You look at Tom Brady, he picks and chooses his times when he's going to throw the ball deep. Tom Brady is not a mobile quarterback. A lot of young quarterbacks get sacked a lot because they hold on to the ball too long. I'm not saying that on that last play that Joe Burrow was holding on to, but he didn't have a chance on that particular play. But there's a lot of different facets to pass blocking. Now, they could have helped Joe Burrow out quite a bit if they ran the ball a little bit more. They were running the ball very effectively. I mean, Joe Mixon averaged almost 5 yards a carry running the ball. They averaged 4 yards a carry as a team running the football. You do that 4 times, you got a first down. So they could have helped him out quite a bit running the football, more play action, as opposed to just having him drop back. The last thing you want to do is have Joe Burrow have to drop back a whole bunch of times. Now you're dropping back 33 times, you get sacked 7 times. That's not good. That's just not sustainable. Your quarterback is not going to last. And he got hurt there. And it really, if he got hurt and couldn't gone back in the game, it would have been game over for Cincinnati. Fortunately, the injury, he just sustained a little sprained knee, and he was able to continue playing. But as a running back, looking at that, if you're studying film and you're looking at that, or even if you're talking about halftime adjustments, you look at what you did in the first half, what worked in the first half, what do you want to go out there and do in the second half? Well, I think they went into halftime with a lead, if I'm not mistaken. Well, we want to run the football. We want to keep the ball out of their hands, and we want to run the football, and we want to try to wear out those pass rushers by leaning on them. Usually those great pass rushers are a little bit light in the rear end, and you put your big guys on them and lean on them a lot. That takes some of that steam out of that pass rush. They could have helped them out a little bit.
All right, let me ask you another question. I'm sorry, Steve. We've talked about the Bengals running attack, but the Rams running attack was non-existent either. Cam Akers,
2 yards a carry.
Sony Michel wasn't even a factor. I mean,
it was terrible.
Yeah, it was awful, right, Steve? I mean, you ever see?
That's what I was going to make that point earlier. I think the Bengals front 7 had a tremendous game because so much of what the Rams do is based off of play action. And when you're constantly losing yardage, they average less than 2 yards a carry. And, that's going to take that play action right away from you, which is why they struggled in the middle of the game like that. But, I think you have to give Cincinnati a lot of credit there. That front 7 played really, really well. And they almost did enough to win them that football game. They just couldn't get home on that last drive against Matt Stafford. They got some pressure on him, but not enough during the game. But, that's a lot of that was the way they play football. They rush 3 more than I think any, except maybe 3 other teams rush 3 guys more than them. And so because their secondary is a little suspect, they were dropping 7 and 8 guys into coverage. So, but there's so many things that happen in a football game. I thought the Rams running attack though was really poor in this one.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, when you think, I still find it hard to believe that the Bengals even made it to the Super Bowl, knowing that after that 9-sack situation in Tennessee, and to think that they were able to get past Kansas City in KC and then only come back here against the Rams and get sacked 7 times. I know, Jake, you alluded to that. I mean, let's face the reality. The what am I telling you? The Bengals road was no picnic.
Oh, no, it wasn't. And I'm trying to look. I think against the Chiefs, ironically, the reason they probably won was because if I remember correctly, they only let up like 1 or 2 sacks the entire game, which is probably why they were able to beat Kansas City. Because if Joe Burrow was sacked the way he was in this last week's game, right? If that happens and you're playing Patrick Mahomes, you can kiss any chances of winning goodbye. The reason they beat the Titans is because they weren't playing a guy like, Patrick Mahomes. They weren't playing a guy of that caliber. They were playing Ryan Tannehill, who's a decent quarterback, right? He's not amazing though, right? He gets the job done, but he's not. I think Joe Burrow's already a better quarterback. So why did they win that game? Because they had a better quarterback, and there's other factors, but ultimately they're playing a guy like Ryan Tannehill. And the reason they won against Kansas City was because some miracle apparently happened that they only let up, like, I think if I remember correctly, I have to look in a minute. I believe it was only one. It was okay, perfect. So it was 1 sack, which is almost feels like a miracle in and of itself that it was 1 sack, and then it's sandwiched in between a 9 and a 7. I mean, that game is probably an anomaly that it was only 1. If it was 2 or 3,
you go back
it's more normal.
And you watch the tape of that game. He was under just as much pressure.
Right.
Yeah, but he got away.
Plays.
I mean, he was able to escape those Kansas City.
He played unbelievable that game. There was a couple times where they had him, and he just got free. I mean, they slid right off of him.
That could have easily been a 6 or 7 sack game.
You're right, but that's what I mean. That's why they win the game, right? He doesn't get sacked 6 or 7 times. It's only 1. He goes out, he makes the plays. That's why he loses this game, though, is because he's not able to make those plays. Instead, he sacks 7 times. That's a 6 additional sacks. Even if it's half that, and he makes a play on 3 of the the sacks, so he only gets sacked 4 times, right? And he makes a play on 3 of them. This game could totally be different. We could be talking about the Bengals having won if he makes a play on just 3 out of those sacks, that would have been, right? So you take this 3 off and he makes 3 plays, it could be a totally different game. It was just the fact that he didn't. And, that's why he beat Kansas City. He made plays. And his defense showed up at the right times, but he went out and made plays. But that's why he lost this game, was his offensive line, as well as they played in the run game. They couldn't pass block well enough. And it's hard. Look, like I said, I know it's hard, but man, I'm telling you, if it's just, you take away 1 or 2 sacks, even forget 3, just 1 or 2, and Burrow gets to make 1 or 2 more plays, this game could completely. Yeah. But right. I mean, even if it wasn't that one, just any of them, I think this game completely changes all of a sudden, but it's just that 1 or 2 plays for Joe Burrow. That's all it takes for him. He really is. And we want to talk about him. He really is that talented. He's fantastic. He makes plays. You just give him 1 or 2 more, and we're looking at this very differently.
All right, I want to circle back on a couple points, okay? Because we have another 5 to 7 minutes left to go here. Number 1, okay, I'm going to ask each and every one of you to give a grade on Matthew Stafford, a 1 being the worst, 10 being the best, okay? And you'll know where I'm going this in a moment, okay? Steve, give Matthew Stafford a grade 1 through 10.
I'd say it was about a 7.5.
Jake?
I'm a little bit harsher. I was thinking about a 6.5.
Mel?
I'd say like a 7. I give him a passing grade.
Yeah, and I would give him a 7. So the one question I've heard throughout the week, and I have no choice but to ask it, okay, is we know that obviously 12 years in Detroit, 1 with the Rams, 4 playoff wins in this tournament, 3 over the course of 12 years. Is it too premature to think, Steve, okay, that Matthew Stafford could be put into the Hall of Fame conversation?
Yes, it's far too early for that, I think. When you look at guys in the Hall of Fame, I mean, he has a Super Bowl victory, and that's great. If he gets another one, then obviously, it will up his chances. But I think he's only been in the Pro Bowl 3 times. He's never been an All-Pro, never been an MVP, so I think it's far too early for that. I saw a lot of talk about that as well earlier this week, but I think it's far too early for that.
Yeah, like I told you, I'm with you guys. I think he's a 7. All right, Jake, is it premature to think that Matthew Stafford's a Hall of Famer at this point?
I mean, I think on a personal level, I might put him in there. And the only reason is not because he's that outstanding. It's actually because the bar is set kind of low nowadays. I mean, look, I use this as my probably my favorite example. If a guy like Joe Namath can be in the Hall of Fame, most quarterbacks can. Now I know Joe Namath, for when he played, it wasn't just about how he played. There was more to it about him as a person and the way he affected the game. I understand all that, right? I know the history of what that one victory means to the NFL, but statistically speaking, which is really what should matter when you're talking about the Hall of Fame, right? There is no shot in a million years he belongs in the conversation with guys like Tom Brady, who will be in there one day, guys like Drew Brees, who will be there one day, guys like Peyton Manning, Brett Favre, Joe Montana, Dan Marino. He shouldn't even be close to that conversation, but he is. And because the bar is set so low, right? What does he have besides a Super Bowl ring? Basically nothing. Joe Namath doesn't have much more than a Super Bowl ring in a game that will always be looked at as an important game, but he doesn't have anything outside of that. If he wasn't in there, I would say no, but because guys like him are in there, it kind of drops the bar quite a bit. And there's other guys that are in there that are, lower in the bar a little bit as well. But he is like the standout example. If you can put a guy like Joe Namath in there, if you win a ring and you don't completely stink as a quarterback, right, and you have a decent tenure, you've got a shot nowadays. I'm not saying first ballot, but he does have a shot. I think the bar should be higher, but the way it is, it's not. I'd have to say I don't think it is too mature yet, or too premature, excuse me.
Well, you bring up some interesting points. Where do you want to go with this one, Mel?
Yeah, if he were to retire today, no, he's not a Hall of Famer. If he were to retire today. Now, his numbers, he's 34 years old. He plays another 4 to 6 years. I mean, his numbers will be worthy of Hall of Fame conversation, and he'll have that big joker in his back pocket, a Super Bowl win, at least one Super Bowl win. Now, we don't know how many more he may get, but based on today, if he were to retire today, no, I think it is premature to talk about it, to say that if he were to retire today, that he's a Hall of Famer. But he plays another 4, 5, 6 years. We can have that discussion. He'll have Hall of Fame numbers. And as Jake was talking about, I mean, the bar is set kind of low. I mean, Joe Namath threw more interceptions than he threw touchdowns. Now Matt Stafford isn't that bad. I mean, he might be like 2 to 1, but he's going to have numbers. Now, he doesn't necessarily have the Pro Bowls because the people that he played, people who were playing his contemporaries at the time. He does, he made it as an alternate a couple times. I don't know if there's one time that he was actually voted in the Pro Bowl. I don't think there was a time, and I know he's played a few times because he was an alternate, but I don't know if there's ever been a time where he was actually voted to the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, there's no question he does lack the individual accolades. I would say, my personal opinion, as much as I love Matthew Stafford, I'm glad he won the ring. Nobody's happier than I am. That it might be a little premature, but by the time his contract expires in 2023, then who knows what's going to happen in those 2 years that would have us change our opinion. All right, I'm going to ask you guys one last question, and then we're going to wrap it up, okay? And we may have talked about this earlier, but I want to bring it again. Steve, give me the one key play that turned this game around. I know we addressed it earlier, but for those tuning in right now, okay, I want to make sure that we get it out. One key play that turned this game around.
I go back to that 4th and 1 run by Cooper Kupp. I think right there, that's the ball game right there. If you're Cincinnati and you stop that run, I think the game's over. I think they go home with a victory. I thought that was the key play, because after they made that play, they started getting chunk yardage down the field. I go back to that 4th and 1. I believe it was a 7-yard run by Cooper Kupp.
Okay, Jake, where are you going with this?
I would probably have to agree, either that or probably when Joe Burrow got hurt. I know Joe stayed in the game and he continued to play through, but I can't help but think that the fact that he was injured to some extent affected the way he was able to play, right? If he's not hurting, maybe on that last play, he can I mean, by some miracle, get out of it, right? Maybe his mobility is just a little bit better, right? It's a little bit more there to what it normally is. Again, that would have been, I mean, a miracle play, but maybe he does. So I would have to say one of those two really were the big ones for me.
Where are you going with this, Mel?
None of that stuff happens if Odell Beckham Jr. doesn't get hurt. The biggest play is him getting hurt. That changed the whole. I mean, you could see the air went out of the stadium when he went down. I mean, the wind was out of their sails. That the fourth down play doesn't matter. You know, whether Joe Burrow, is hurt or not, that doesn't matter, because I don't think the game would have been as close as it was. I'm not saying it would have been a blowout, but I don't think it would have been as close as it was. The game changed when he got hurt. And even me, I'm like, oh my God, the Rams are in trouble. I mean, that's the first thing I said. If he can't get back in the game, the Rams are in trouble. That changed the entire complexion of the game.
Well, one of my favorite songs, I believe, is that Vanessa Williams, "Save the Best for Last," right? Is that what the song was? I, as much as I'm a real music person, which I'm not, okay. Mel Farr Jr. I was thinking Odell Beckham Jr. too when he got down, and that changed the complexion of the game. But for all you folks that are looking for an acronym, GMTA, you know what that stands for? Let Balestrieri take a crack at GMTA.
I was going to say, give me the something, but I have no idea.
Well, you want to take a shot at it, Jake?
I was thinking the exact same. I was like, give me the what though?
Okay.
I don't know what that A would stand for. And all I could think of is inappropriate words. I'm thinking inappropriate words. I'm like, no, don't say that. Don't say anything stupid.
I'm playing a sneaky hembo on everybody, folks. GMTA, write it down, folks. Pencil and paper. In fact, you should write everything down that we're talking about. You probably won't catch it the first time around. Great minds think alike. Right, Mel Farr? There you go. Great minds think alike. And that's where we draw that connection from Odell Beckham Jr. to a very one-sided game to what we ended up getting was a close one. So good job, Mel. They're taking the words out of my mouth. Not that I ever lack any words anyway, so it doesn't make any difference. So, but meanwhile, guys, I have a great time with all y'all. You guys did a really good job tonight. I'm glad we had a chance to recap the Super Bowl. And just to let people know that you can find inside the Pigskin here at SFT on the broadcast side over on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, or you can go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel, South Florida Tribune, or you can follow me on Twitter at Tribune South. With that said, Steve, let everybody know how they can get a hold of you.
Yes, thank you. You can find me on Twitter at SteveB7SFG. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, I don't know, something else, LinkedIn. I write for PatsFans.com and do a couple of podcasts over there. And I also am a national security columnist for 1945.com.
And Steve obviously is a regular contributor as well. All right, Mel, go ahead.
I can be found on all the social media at Mel Farr Jr. And you can find out what we have going on here in Atlanta and also in Detroit for young people at melfar.org.
All right, well, Jake, you know what? I'll go ahead and give you the floor. You obviously have an opportunity to promote Sideline Sports. Give it to everybody out there and let them know how they can go ahead and get a hold of you and your incredible crew.
I appreciate that. Well, you can find me on Twitter at Jake_Malik, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff as well. But more importantly, Sideline Sports is my main thing. You guys can find us on Twitter at Sideline Sport 1. We're the same thing on Instagram. We're on Facebook. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're even on TikTok, which I mean, I know how to use it, but I know little, but I understand it. So we're there. If people are interested in that too. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just covering all the sports, all the important news every week.
Well, just like I mentioned at the top of the broadcast, the South Florida Tribune is very thrilled to be a part of working with the folks over at Sideline Sports. And like I said before, and a special kudos before we ended here tonight to Candy Eveling Morganroth, who does an unbelievable job getting the content that we have up on the website, the broadcast and so forth. Without her, we couldn't put this production together. So once again, if you want to find this broadcast again, www.southfloridatribune.com, and you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as all the other broadcast providers. So On behalf of Jake Malik, Mel Farr Jr., and Steve Balestrieri, my name is Scott Morgan, Route the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Inside the Pigskin. Take care, everybody, and be safe. God bless. Thank you for joining us.